I find that it's very difficult to try to get into the industry through screenwriting.
And yes, I did shoot clutch with that 50 millimeter lens. I was trying to, well, my budget wasn't that much. I was trying to avoid having to rent out lights.
All it takes is one person calling out and then having to reschedule or try to find a replacement, which is going to back things up.
You're listening to the Fanboy Film Talk podcast.
How you doing, folks, and welcome to the Fanboy Film Talk podcast, episode 1. It's the first one out of the gate. If you were nice enough to stumble upon this in whatever venue you happen to find it, be that Blog Talk Radio, iTunes, or some other platform, thank you for taking the time to listen to this. This podcast is designed for independent filmmakers and fans of independent film, and we'll just say filmmakers and film fans alike. Specifically for the independent filmmaker, because I, probably much like several of you, have come across brick walls, or you've come across things that you didn't quite know how to do, didn't know what direction to take, didn't feel maybe confident in the business portion of it as you did with the camera, or maybe you didn't feel comfortable with the camera or editing or anything like that. And it's always good to be able to acquire as much information about what to do, how to do it as you can. And if you can get that for free, then that's even better, which is what this podcast is. It's for free. You can get all this information this way. Same way I'm getting it. I'm planning on learning this stuff right along with you. And more importantly than that, not just coming from my mouth, but I will be endeavoring to get it from the mouths of experts, not just myself. I have shot short films and feature-length film, both of which were done for next to no budget. The feature was done for $600, which you can imagine is quite a feat. But it took a lot of searching around on the internet to try to find various free items and to borrow locations and soundtracks and music, and cutting deals with independent artists, musical artists, in order to try to get that finished. And even at that, there are several stories wrapped up in and around the production of that film, which was called The End Agenda, that I could share to help those of you that have not quite taken the leap into filmmaking, some pitfalls to avoid, which is the other thing. There are some other filmmakers, some other writers, some other actors, and people out there that I'm going to reach out to share their stories, whether they be successful stories or whether they be stories of something. I don't want to say failure, because we don't want to call it failure. It's only failure if you didn't learn from it. But stories where things didn't go quite as well as they would have liked it to, so that we all can get a little something out of it. Excuse me. But that will be what this entire experience is about, and I hope that you will join me here on this podcast on a weekly basis. That's the hope, folks, to do this thing weekly. Also, if you are on Twitter, of course, if you're doing anything these days, you have to be wrapped up into your social media. So if you happen to be on Twitter, be sure to follow me at Mr. Green 75. Written just how it sounds, Mr. Green 75, the numbers, on Twitter. If you are a fellow filmmaker, or you just want to show some signs of support, you can find the All the Way Live Facebook page, which is how I do all of my work. Do it out my podcasts, whatever videos I produce, whatever films I do is done under the banner of All the Way Live / Fanboy Films. And you can check me out there. Quick subject that I wanted to get into as a opener, because I find that a lot of us have gone through this at some point in time, is respect for the business. Respect for the business. And what I mean by that is those occasions where we may have seen the less than stellar independent movie, low budget, no budget movie, and before we ever stepped foot into attempting to make one, we watched this thing on the screen wherever we happen to be, and probably said something to ourselves in the extent of, it's terrible, I could do better than that. I know I'm certainly not the only one. I've heard several people do it. I've been in the rooms with lots of people that have had that experience or had that saying like, this is crap, this is awful. How could they even waste their time doing it? Didn't they know better than to write this garbage? Blah 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 blah. You know exactly what I'm talking about. What I've learned from the attempt of making anything is that it's a lot easier said than done, and you will gain an entirely new respect for those filmmakers, whether they be hacks or not, when you have endeavored to try it. You have to give them that much credit. And you have to give them that much credit for the simple reason of this. It takes effort to make a bad movie. It takes a genuine effort to even make a bad movie. That is absolute fact. It's easy to sit and criticize the movie. It's easy to talk about how awful it was. I mean, and we've all done it. I do it. I do it now. But now that doesn't mean that I don't respect the people that have tried to do it. I put it in nicer terms now, because I at least give them their due, that they got up off the couch, they either acquired a script or they sat down and wrote one themselves. They got the equipment, maybe spent a little money over the course of the years to buy some cameras and some editing software, or they found somebody that had it. They found some actors, they found some locations. They had this thing shot. They edited it down. Took the time to either press it to DVD, Blu-ray, upload it online, make it available for video download, get it into a store. There have been several people that got it into the stores. I mean, all of that stuff, that is the bare bones, the literal bare bones of any particular film production. But all of that stuff takes some work. It takes some effort to be able to even try. There are many talented people that I've met since I've been roaming around these film festivals and hitting these networking events and talking to other like-minded colleagues and so on and so forth. There's probably a limitless amount of people that I've run into that had all the tools and the talent to do the things that they wanted to do, in terms of, I have an idea of a movie and I really want to do it and this and that, but they never get past the idea. Instead, they rather find people like you or me that have actually tried, or own some camera equipment or something like that. And they give you why don't you write this for me, or we can do this together, or whatever the case may be. Because it's not easy, man. It's not easy. And in light of that, you will probably become your own worst enemy. And I'm talking to the people that have not quite gotten that first step yet. You will probably become your own worst enemy when it relates to making whatever artistic endeavor it happens to be. It doesn't have to be movies, but of course that's what this podcast is about. But you can put a brick wall up for your own projects. You can talk yourself out of it before you have ever begun. because the first thing that you could think of is that nobody wants to see this. I don't have the right equipment. I don't know anybody that can make this happen for me. It's not going to look as good as the next guy. This person on YouTube's video looks awesome. I can't make that. You can create any number of reasons and excuses as to why you will not even try to go any further than just having the idea in your head. And it's a really bad position to be in when you have something creatively to give, but you just don't know how to go. You just don't know how to get up and go and make that work for you. Only thing I can say for that is, you got to put forth the effort. You gotta try, and you're gonna have to get some thick skin, because there's always gonna be some jerk offs out there that's gonna look at your stuff and say that it's no good, or the people that was in it are no good, or the director was no good, or the script wasn't no good, and they could have done it better. That's just the world that we live in now. Social media has opened that up to the masses, and there's always gonna be critics. So yeah, you're gonna have to thicken it up. It doesn't make it easier, because you know that the criticism is out there, I will admit, but it's something that is going to be required. It's going to be required for you to thicken that skin up in order to take those first steps. If I had any suggestions of something that you could probably read to try to motivate yourselves to go that first route, Art and Fear, which is a book that was which I first heard about through a video with Mr. Robert Rodriguez. And I looked that up. Art and Fear, which essentially has the topic of you're going to feel the fear behind producing your art. And of course, filmmaking is an art. And you're going, you may get hit with certain feelings of, I'm not good enough to do this, people are not going to like it, I'm not better than the next guy, or I'm not even close to being as good as the next guy or girl. I don't know who's listening to this. So that may be something to help you out. Remember that, Art and Fear. I wish I had the author in front of me right now, but I don't. Check me out next podcast, I may have it. But in any case, once you have done it, once you've taken the time to try to organize it, try to push out a schedule, go through the casting, try to acquire locations, try to get favors in, try to, get equipment, try to do all the things that's wrapped up in and around making a short film or a feature film, you will have an entirely new respect for the process. You can't respect it until you've done it. That I firmly believe. And once you've tried it, and once you've had those crazy things that will only take place on set, and specifically those crazy things that only take place on an independent set, and sometimes the major sets too. When you're gonna have that diva that's gonna pop on the set, and when I say diva, it is not always talking about the women. Believe me, I've had far more guys be needy and be demanding and need to be the center of attention than I've ever had women. You're always going to have that. You're going to have people that make decisions about what they want to do at the last minute after you've scheduled things. You're going to have the potential equipment problems, or it's not going to look quite as good on the view screen as you thought it would through the lens finder. All of that stuff will come up and rear its ugly head in some form, fashion, or another. And once you've dealt with it, once you've either jumped a hurdle or found some way to maneuver around it, that you will understand that nobody woke up that day and decided I'm going to make a piece of crap movie. That wasn't in the cards. That wasn't something that they just decided to do. Yeah, some people do enjoy making a cheap movie, and we're not talking about the Sharknadoes and stuff like that. They have a niche. They have an audience. They make camp, and they know they make camp, and that's not going to change because their audience wants camp. But Yeah, nobody wakes up and decides that, hey, I'm going to make a piece of garbage today. That's just not part of the process. Anyway, in this inaugural podcast, I'm not going to go on much further. I just want to create an introduction and a short subject, which I'm sure most of us have come across and talked about or dealt with. But I invite you to come back and at least sample the product in its full form when I begin to have guests that can come on and share their experiences. And speaking of that, if you are a filmmaker and you have a MP3 format trailer for your movie, please feel free to send it over. I am more than willing to advertise that for free. No cost here. You know, the indie filmmaking community has to get itself tight knit, because we don't have a lot of money backing us up. We don't have a lot of studio power. We don't have all the things that a high dollar major motion picture would have. So, you know, any venue that we can find to promote our stuff, I say we gotta take it. So, and I want to be one of those venues. So, if you have MP3 format of your movie trailer, send that over to me at fanboystv@gmail.com. That's fanboystv@gmail.com. Send that over, and I will incorporate it into the show. Send me a description along with it. Send me the description, anything that needs to be read, your actors, the content of the movie, and the director and the production company. You want to send me those things so we can do it up as nicely as we can possibly do. So make sure that we do that. MP3 formats, and eventually we'll get this thing over to video status. Again, thanks for tuning in to this inaugural portion of this podcast. I appreciate your time for sitting here and listening to me go on. The next time that I speak, we hope to have some guests in the studio with me, and we will start this thing from the bottom and work our way up. See how do you get yourself going? How do you get motivated? How do you get a script written, which is not an easy task. It sounds easier than what it actually is. So we're going to try to get some people that have actually sat down and written a full-length script to talk about the hardships of sitting there and staring at the blank page, which I know a lot of people are scared of. Thanks for tuning in. You guys have a wonderful week. And make sure you subscribe to this podcast wherever you may catch it. And I promise you, I will do my best to get you the best information on how to get the job done. Thanks a lot, guys.
You've been listening to the Fanboy Film Talk podcast. Be sure to subscribe and join us every week right here on iTunes and Blog Talk Radio. Follow Brian at Mr. Green75 on Twitter and stop by the All the Way Live Facebook page. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next show.